Looking for real stories that lift you up? Welcome to Inspire and Impact, the podcast where purpose meets perseverance. This is where transformation begins, and your story continues.
Welcome to the Inspire Impact Podcast Show. I'm your host, Daniel Rosenstein. Today I have the honor of interviewing Amy Lenius. Amy, thank you so much for coming on the show again.
Thank you for having me back. I love when I get to make another appearance on very aligned, heart-driven shows. So this is very exciting for me.
Yeah, before you were on the Future Proof Business Podcast, talking about business, and today I want to talk about inspiration and all that good stuff. As we begin, can you introduce yourself to the new audience since they're not going to know who you are?
Yeah, absolutely. So like you said, my name is Amy Lenius, and I partner with a company down in the States. I myself am in Canada, down in the States, called Next Level University. And we are all about personal development and identity work for the sake of success, and how your version of success is so subjective. The journey you need to get there is subjective, but there are some unsexy fundamental through lines that everyone can benefit from and use to get to their version of success. So we deeply believe that everyone has their next level, and we are so dedicated to helping people get there. And I fell into this company, I think almost 4 years ago. I think it'll be 4 years in the summer. And I fell in love with what they were doing because they were talking about holistic self-improvement. And we don't necessarily use that language as much now, because when we say holistic self-improvement, no one knows what we're talking about, but holistic being everything affects everything else. And I fell in love with the word holistic when I was growing up because I grew up very sick. I grew up with a female health condition called endometriosis. It's very hormone imbalance driven. And I had to go on quite the journey to become healthy from that, to become pain-free from something I was told would basically ruin my whole life and keep me sick forever. And so I fell in love with resiliency, self-belief, holistic ideas of thinking. And then these guys came into my periphery and I started falling in love with what they had to do. I became a client, and then it expanded into me working with them at a live event one time, helping them MC the live event. And then everything just proliferated from there.
Wonderful. I'm sorry that you had to go through those trials and tribulations in life, but here you are and you're smiling, looking great. Hopefully we can bring out some of that positivity into the world. Before we start talking about like your work, you maybe discuss with us a little bit about who you are, like in home, being as a woman, a mother, and a human being.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
a little bit more on the personal, emotional side, not just things on the business side.
Absolutely. So as a human being, I am a mother of two, which, like I just shared, is something really special. I was told I would never have kids. So being a mother is my best accomplishment, a favorite thing that I get to do. I homeschool my kids, so they get to be home with me all the time, and we get to just live this wonderful life together. We live out in the country on a dirt road. We have chickens. We just love living simplistically, and we live in a tiny town in Ontario, Canada. I have an amazing husband, and I obviously get to work from home, which is a big deal for me because my values as a human are really freedom led. And you can see that in a little aspects of my life: homeschooling, chickens, working from home on my own schedule. And so I do love all of that. And I am obsessed with natural wellness. I love tea. I'm addicted to tea. I have a tea going all the time. I have teas for just about everything. And then I have one that I would consider people need their coffee every day. I have that tea, my tea that I have to have every day in the morning. And I'm very in tune with women's health, natural wellness, and my hormones and things based on being so sick. So those are just some natural personal interests of mine and things that I get to do and the kind of life that I get to live.
I'm a tea lover myself. I really like green tea and different types of like fruit flavored teas. How about yourself? What's your favorite tea?
Yeah, so my like must have everyday tea is a green jasmine. And then depending on what kind of physical and mental support I need, I'll go into different teas, but a lot of them are very good for like female health. So I'll do a lot of hibiscus or red raspberry leaf and nettle and spearmint and things like that.
Cool. So I described a few minutes ago that you were like living in survival mode. What did that look like before things start to shift better? Maybe share a little bit more about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was really sick growing up as a young adolescent, and it took me years and years to get a diagnosis. And so that alone was a struggle to be surrounded by a bunch of other young women who are also struggling with the transition that is becoming a cycling woman. But mine was so different. Mine was so painful and so uncomfortable. And there was so many different symptoms that my other girlfriends weren't dealing with. And so when I went to the doctor, it was very gaslighty. Oh, this is just normal female problems. You're just becoming a woman. Welcome to womanhood. And I got dismissed all the time. And it actually took me years to have someone take me seriously and to go have a look and see what was going on. And we did an exploratory surgery and they found what's called endometriosis. And so that alone, just having to fight so hard to have someone hear you when something is wrong with you physically was something all in itself. And then once I had the diagnosis, it was a lot of years of medications, hormone therapies, painkillers, a lot of surgeries because they go in and they try and cauterize out all the excess tissue. And so it was very much living in survival mode and living in what this one system told me was only possible. I felt like I was, like you said, in survival mode, going day to day to day, doing the best that I could. I rarely let my symptoms drag me down. I almost took pride in how I could still have a good day and a decent amount of pain and no one would know about it. But eventually I got really tired of that. I got tired of all the medication. I got tired of how the medication was making me feel. I was still in pain all the time. And so I had this moment in my early 20s of just, you know what? I'm going to go off of everything and just see what's working, what's not, how my body's doing, get to know my body again. And that's where everything just started to build. I started to get curious. I myself was in school for anatomy and physiology at the time as well. So I was learning so much about the human body and it partnered with my healing journey. So I just started trying different modalities and just following curiosity. And I just started stacking these really small wins over time. And it got me out of survival mode and it got me to build a certain level of resilience that I don't think I knew I had.
So what was the moment you realized you can't live this way and things had to change?
Yeah, it was that moment when I started feeling really sick from all the medications, and I didn't know if it was sickness from the drugs or sickness from my condition. They were all starting to blur together. So I just had this moment of clarity of I already feel like crap regardless. So let's just go off of everything and just see where it goes. If I already feel like crap, at least I don't have to be on these drugs and I can just deal. But it allowed me to have this moment of clarity. I feel like it was the first time I took some ownership and some responsibility for how my health was going and what was going to go in, on, and around my body. And I think that was a really important moment because we as humans need to have more responsibility over our health, in my opinion. Yes, there are systems in place. There are so many wonderful doctors, practitioners, all sorts of things, but you need to be a partner with them. You have to be involved and learning to take ownership and responsibility and trusting that there are things that I know about my body best that no one is going to really changed a lot for me in my perspective and how I started to approach different things.
So how did like your background in anatomy, physiology, and women's hormone health, what do you think that women are often misunderstood about when it comes to like their health?
A lot of women still don't know about their full hormone cycle. And so they're living in this state where they're fighting against their natural rhythms all the time and not understanding why certain times they're tired and why certain times they're so much more energetic, more social, more articulate. And then on the weeks that they're not, they think there's something wrong with them. Why can't they be consistent? Why can't I have more energy? Why is this hitting me again like this? And in reality, week to week to week, you are physically, mentally, and emotionally just set up and wired to be different. And so, just a really simplistic zoom out macro analogy is that men are like the sun. You guys are like the sun. You cycle on a 24-hour hormonal clock. So you have your highs and lows and ebbs of flows hormonally in 24 hours. that same kind of pattern, the highs and lows of all of our different hormones, as women, we're more like the moon. It stretches out over 26 to 34 days, depending on the woman. So we have different peaks and valleys that are spread out for a week or two versus day to day to day to day. So we're very different week to week to week, just like the moon. And so even just knowing that as a woman gives you so much more permission and validation and understanding of why you are the way you are, why you feel the way you feel certain times and not others. And it is something to know about yourself, because I do believe self-awareness is a superpower, and how you run mentally, emotionally, and physically is a part of that. And so knowing your hormonal cycle, how you feel act and show up in the world during each one, it really is such an empowering thing to know.
So looking back at some of these chronic health challenges that you had, what did it really teach you about yourself?
Hmm. I can look back on it with a lens of, they always say hindsight's 2020, because when I see how I was able to make changes and certain people with my condition seem to not be able to do those things. And I always wonder why. If I can do it, anyone can do it. And it just turns out that I grew up with something called high self-belief. I was The way I was brought up, however that is molded in people, I had very high self-belief. High self-belief is a simplistic form of self-efficacy. It's you believe you're capable of achieving external results with enough time, energy, and effort. And this is something that we all have different levels of. And if you don't feel like you were born with high self-belief, that's okay. You can build it. We teach people to build it every day. And I still make sure I'm building mine every day. But I look back and I was someone who always had high self-belief. I believed I could figure things out. And that is something that I can look back on and be like, "Oh, okay." So when I was doing a lot of public speaking in the women's health space and things, and I would give them all the information, this is all you need to know about your body, and here's all the things you can do day to day to day on how to get them done. I was not factoring in levels of self-belief or levels of self-worth. Now, I grew up with low self-worth. That's a whole other thing, but the high self-belief is the thing that kept me going. But bringing in people's ability to be consistent, to teach them sustainability and things, that part, I look back and I'm like, okay, these are the things that I had that I can see others just naturally struggle with. And I have my own struggles. Everyone has their gifts and their struggles. But that, I think, is the biggest lesson looking back, especially now, because I'm a coach and I help so many people through the lens of self-belief, self-worth, and sustainability and consistency now, not just through this lens of women's health. It's what I've expanded into. But I deeply believe it's because these are the pieces I was missing when I was trying to help people a few years ago. And so I always think that if we really focus on what this means, we can become it. We want to become the people that we needed back when we were struggling. I think a lot of people who are in areas of service naturally grow into this, becoming people who they would have needed when they were younger. And that's always my mission. I want to make sure that I can help people who struggled as I did, but I'm not limited to people who have different struggles than I did. I want to understand low self-belief and how to coach those people. Because when you're a coach, if you talk to someone who has low self-belief, the same way you talk to someone who has high self-belief, you are doing damage. It's detrimental to them. It's not good for them. And so it's taught me so much about being not only a well-rounded human and where my strengths and weaknesses were, but how to help others do the same.
What's one powerful health shift that you've seen create between like yourself and some of the other women you coach?
Yeah, the biggest one is pain-free periods. If we're being fully honest, that was the thing with, just because most women have painful periods doesn't mean that it's normal. It's actually just common. And those two terms are very different. Just because something is common doesn't mean that it's normal or okay. And so teaching them that they can do things throughout their entire cycle to support the symptoms they have during their period is one of the greatest things I think I was able to achieve with women and helping them understand how to do that. Again, I deeply believe just empowering people with information and how to's. That's one of my favorite things in the world. I think that's another reason why I was so drawn to NLU and to Alan specifically. He's our CEO, because we call him Mr. How To. That's what he does. He paints pictures for people. He's an educator, but he's also a guy who breaks down and reverse engineers goals into tiny habits for people. And I was really drawn to that because I believe that that's what I was trying to do for others as well.
Before you talked about living a holistic life, but like I find a lot of people don't do that. Like a lot of people, they either focus on their health or they focus on their business or they focus on their like relationships with their families. But I rarely see people like really have a holistic approach, making sure that there's balance between their relationships, their health, their finances. How can a lot of people are very busy these days? And I find it to be really challenging. We live in a very fast-paced world with everything's on social media, AI. It's just speeding everything up. Like every day, things are changing so fast. There's a lot of inflation. Things are expensive. A lot of people are struggling financially. How can people live like a holistic life, like a balanced life, when it seems like extremely difficult to do for a lot of people?
And it is. It is something that's extremely difficult, but that's where you get to choose your hard. It is. Do you want to choose working hard to have a well-rounded, beautiful life, or do you want to choose really hard to stay busy in things that aren't moving the needle in the direction you want to go and it keeps you stuck? And yes, both are hard, and achieving your version of success in health, wealth, quality of life, and love, which is what we talk about a lot, those four. We think that's a very holistic way of looking at things, is challenging. I actually deeply believe that anyone can be successful at one. If you're throwing all of your attention into one thing, of course you're going to be more successful. But do you care that it's at the expense of your relationships or at the expense of your finances or at the expense of your health? We all know people who have great relationships and are wonderful people, but they can't seem to make money. They don't do well in the economy. And then we see other people who do really well in business and finances and economically, but they struggle to hold on to relationships. They've been divorced 6 times and they are not physically healthy. They're throwing all their eggs into one basket. Now, again, there's seasons for everything. So when you use the word balance, I think that's a mentality that people need to get away from right there. You can't balance it all equally every day. Balance means we're equally all things all at once. And if you're chasing balance, you're chasing BS. You can't actually get there. I am not equally all the hats that I wear right now. I am not balanced right now in all the things that I value. Right now, I am giving momentum and in a space of my career, my passion, my purpose, my belief in offering free value to the world. That's where I'm at right now. And later, I'm going to tap into family. That's something that's really, really important to me. The quality of life within my home, my relationships with my family, my children, my marriage. That gets attention later. I get to spin and give that momentum later. This one is getting this now. I can touch in on each one every day. I'm still going to do my workout today. I haven't done that yet. I'm actually going to squeeze it in between this call and my next one because I get a bit of a break between my last call and this one. So it does look messy sometimes. Is that workout going to look as good if I wasn't cramming it in between calls? Probably not, but it's still getting done. And so you have to have an understanding that you can't give something 100% of your effort all the time, but you can consistently give it 70 every day. And that's where the compound effect comes in. If you are giving yourself, if you're giving momentum and attention to the things that matter most to you, again, this is where you have to discern what are the things that are most important to you and how can you let go of all the busy work that's keeping you distracted. Like you said, the social medias, the trying to keep up, all of these things. There's so much, I guarantee, that you are just doing to keep busy. It's not moving the needle on the things that actually matter to you. And that could be because you haven't actually gotten certain and clear on what those things are. And once you do, you name your top 3 to 5 things that matter the most to you in this world. And we love categorizing it into health, wealth, the quality of your life, and your love life, which can be with yourself, it can be with your family, your friends, and with your spouse, your children, however love shows up for you in this season. It's all relevant. But in those 4 buckets, what are you doing every day to make sure that those continue to increase and compound? I do not expect anyone to put 100% into all of those every day, but I do expect them. In our coaching, we track habits, we have metrics. We break it down for people. This is literally what we do. we break it down for people, and I make sure that their habits touch in on those 3 to 5 important things every day. And they're allowed to give those things 30% if that's all they have to give it that day. Other days, they're going to be able to give more when they have more energy and more capacity. But if we can just give it a 30%, then that's a win. And I think people have a lot of all or nothing mindset. They have a lot of perfectionism mindset. They don't embrace progress over perfection, and they really struggle to get clear and not stay too busy in things that don't matter.
And I want to touch upon something you mentioned a few moments ago about having like low self-worth. Sometimes people get really good advice. We live in the information world. There's people can use Google, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, whatever AI that they prefer. So it seems like there's an overabundant amount of information, but yet people seem to still struggle a lot in their daily lives and making choices and figuring things out. How come a lot of times, even when people have all this information or they're even working with a coach, that if they have low self-worth, low self-esteem, things aren't working out? Like, why is that such like a big blocker in life?
Yeah, if things aren't working out, are you using the information or are you just learning it? It's 2 feet on a human body. If you're just learning, if you're just reading the books, but not implementing with action, you're going to start walking in circles and you're not going to go anywhere. We have this culture right now where people think if I just journal, manifest, and learn all the time, it's going to happen for me. No, it's not. That's a wonderful thing to have in your repertoire, to grow, to center, to whatever it is that does for you. It's still not going to get you to your goals without action. And I think people get lost in that. They get lost in the action step because they don't actually know how to. So many people out there are spouting all of these, what sound like amazing things, but they're not breaking it down for people to digest into actionable steps that build over time. And so there's a lot of just toxic positivity stuff out there that's not giving people, hey, it's going to get hard and it's going to suck some days, but you got to do it anyways. There's very little of that. And you need to know where you're going, and you need to have humility to understand where you're at. Humility being, I know that what I know is limited, and I know that what I don't know is limitless. I know what my skills are. I know what my weaknesses are. And then understanding which ones work towards your goals and which ones don't. This is why also, if you don't have clear goals, of course you don't know what to implement. Goals, core aspirations, and goals help create the roadmap, because instantly, if you have a goal, every person, place, thing, idea becomes either aligned with that goal or not. I want to become, let's use fitness. Oh, let's use fitness. Okay. I want to be someone who works out every day. Okay. Every decision now that you make every day is either for that goal or not. Every person you hang out with is either for that goal or not. Is it someone who's going to be like, no, skip your workout today. Let's go there, do this. Or are they someone who's, oh, you haven't done your workout today? Yeah, let's go for a hike, or I'll wait, or whatever that is. Everything now all of a sudden can be run through the filter of, is this aligned with the goal or not? And when you have that level of certainty, you create more action. Clarity creates certainty, certainty creates action. And so knowing your goals and being very clear on what they are, and being very clear on what daily action you need to take to compound over time to get that goal, is going to serve you. Yes, we can learn all the things. I love learning. I learn every day. I read every day. I have an audiobook every day. I have a podcast that I listen to every day. I love learning. I really do. But if I don't implement what I learn, it's no good.
So I've been like people, especially women who have low self-esteem or low self-worth, really improve upon that.
Yeah.
It
So
seems like with some people, it's really difficult. It's really, they struggle of that being like a really big issue.
yeah. So if you struggle to take action, there's a few things that could be in your way. You could have low self-belief. Let's start there. Low self-belief means you don't actually believe you're capable of doing that thing, or you believe that there's 3 layers of internal belief. So it's, do I believe it's possible? Have I seen it, witnessed it out there in the world? Do I believe it's possible for me? Those 2 answers are very different sometimes, because people like to think that someone else has something different than they did, an advantage that they did that I don't have. So that's why they succeeded. And do I believe it's going to be worth it? One of those 3 things is messed up in your thought process if you struggle with the self-belief part, or you don't believe you're capable of this thing. Self-worth is different. Self-worth is an internal game. It's, do I believe I'm worthy of achieving this, of having this, of holding this. And self-worth shows up with, yes, low self-esteem. It's a fancy word basically for low self-esteem, low self-respect. And it shows up in people's struggle to succeed because you don't keep the promises you make to yourself. If you have low self-worth, you do not set proper, healthy boundaries. If you have low self-worth, you don't have social courage. You struggle to show up your authentic self. You will either people please, dim, whatever that looks like to keep the peace. You struggle to invest in yourself sometimes. And that doesn't mean even monetarily. You struggle to take care of yourself because there's a self-worth issue there. It doesn't have to necessarily be monetary. It could be I refuse to listen to podcasts and grow my knowledge because there's something there that is blocking you, or physically take care of yourself. It all falls under low self-worth. And the last one is if you struggle with comparison, you're comparing to others to a detriment. If you're doing that to make yourself feel less than, I suck, look at this person, they're so much better than me because of XYZ, that is a low self-worth tactic if you're not using it for inspiration, but to a detriment. And so there's so many amazing and simplistic, not always easy, but simplistic little things that you can tap into to start growing your self-esteem, your self-respect, your self-worth, your self-belief. And really, one of them really is learning to keep the promises that you make to yourself every day and really understanding what those promises are. So basically, things that you're committing to every day for the sake of a goal, for the sake of a desired outcome. And that's a really, really good place to start. But if you struggle to be consistent, it typically means you're not starting sustainably. Like I said a couple minutes ago, people have this all or nothing thought process. If I can't do it at 10 out of 10, then I'm not going to do it. If I can't go to the gym every day and lift weights for an hour, then I'm not going to do anything. And so no, you've never been able to consistently go to the gym and you haven't picked up a weight in 20 years. How about we start with 20 minutes at home walking so you get into the habit and build the identity of someone who honors their body with movement every day. And then we build from there. So it takes humility, it takes sustainability, and it takes self-accuracy, which I guess is humility, but it is a process, but there is a science to it. And it is something that you can tap into. And unfortunately, it's just a lot of unsexy fundamentals. But what's exciting about that is the unsexy fundamentals are simplistic. They're not always easy to implement because, again, like we just said, if you have low self-worth, low self-belief, those kind of things, we do have to work with that. But being consistent and reaching your goals, yes, it's this external game and there is an achievement that needs to happen there, but your identity comes along with you. So that's why self-awareness and identity work is always just as important as these external achievements because they go hand in hand.
I've noticed a big trend now that a lot of people, they're getting into more serious relationships like family and kids later in life. They're focusing on the career first. What's your point of view as being like a coach to a lot of people about that? Is that something that you often encounter with a lot of like your clients? And do you often say to women like, hey, put off like the family and stuff, focus on your career? Or is it really depends on every individual? What's your point of view about that?
Oh, never. I would never say that to someone because that would be a projection. So that is so individualistic. It really is. It's a personal choice. Now, for some people, it's not a personal choice. They wish they could have met the right person and had babies by now and all of these things. It just hasn't worked out in their favor yet. And again, there's things that you can try and start doing and stuff. But no, I think there's a personal preference. And with women, especially, there's pressure to have one or the other. Are you a career woman or are you a family woman? You can be both. You can also have both, but still believe your family comes first. You can also have both and still believe and be okay with the fact that you're a very career, goal-oriented, success-driven person who also has children that they love and nurture. So it's so individualistic. But what I do see a lot is women coming for permission in what they think their version of success would be, because it is very rare women are told that whatever they feel is the most important is the right answer. And so they come for validation and permission in this is what I would like to see happen. I would love to be home with my children, but still make $500 a month extra so that I still have something for me that's passion and purpose driven, brings in a little bit of money, but I'm still at home with my children, doing what I want to do as a mother. That to someone is a version of success for the season that they are in. And it's so valid and it can absolutely be done. Myself, I see myself building this incredibly stable and awesome foundation and momentum within my career as I put my children first. But as they need me less, I get to pour into this more. And the more I get to pour into this, it is built on what it is that I'm doing now. But I like full disclosure, if my kid started screaming right now, I wouldn't prioritize this podcast over my kid. And so knowing your priorities is really, really important. But again, it is personal preference and it is okay. What you value most is okay, but you can value multiple things. It's just at what level is each one. And then that level you get to pour into at that level. That wasn't a very clear statement, but it's so subjective. It's not an objective truth. It's so subjective that it is so individualistic for everybody. And everyone seems to have their opinions on it that they like to project onto other people. Oh, women should be able to have careers and all these things. Yes, absolutely. They should if they want them. And vice versa. Women should be able to want to have a stay at home life and just want to be with their babies and not be career driven. That's okay too. It really is. And they can create a life that looks like that and hopefully find partners that believe in both. Now, that's a whole other thing. You get into relationships where you don't discuss that. And then she wants to do what she can to stay at home with the children, and he expects her to bring in a full-time income. Or vice versa. She would love the idea of still building a career while she has children, and he expects her to be at home being a homemaker. So women get a lot of things projected onto them and a lot of standards, a lot of beliefs, and a lot of what a valuable woman is projected onto them. So typically, they actually need a lot of support in hearing that what they want is valid, it is okay. And sometimes they need help getting there, and that's okay too.
And sometimes you talk about the different archetypes, like the hero, the villain, the victim, the guide. Can you explain to people what are our archetypes? Who cares? Why is it so important?
Oh, it's super important. Good question. It's super important to know where you naturally fall on that scale. So we've already talked about self-belief and self-worth. So self-belief, that external belief in achievement and things, and self-worth being that internal game. If you have, let's say, so picture a quadrant and victim and villain are on the bottom, hero and guide are on the top. And there is a little formula that you can run where you can actually project and predict who is in what category based on if they have low self-belief, high self-worth, low self-belief, and see where they fall. So let's say victims, for example. Victims believe that they are stuck. They don't believe that their life can change because they don't believe it's possible for them to do what it takes to make a change. So everything sucks in their life. Again, I'm using air quotes here because this is, again, subjective, but everything sucks in their life and it's their fault because they're the victim, they're the worst. And that is low self-belief and low self-worth. The villain has low self-belief, but inflated self-worth. So the villain also is stuck in a situation, but it's not their fault. It's someone else's. It's the world's. It's the economy. It's politics. It's whatever it is. And their inflated self-worth means they think they're owed something regardless of the effort that they put in. Victims believe it doesn't matter how much effort I put in, nothing's going to change, so why put in the effort? Villains believe the opposite, that they're owed something regardless of the effort that they put in. So they have low self-belief and inflated self-worth. And again, we all have these moments all the time. We've all been all four, but we also have a home. So the people with high self-belief and low self-worth, those are the heroes. They believe that they can achieve things and they want people to come with them, and they will drag people with them at the expense of themselves because they have low self-worth. They will let people walk all over them, and they will always do things for others at the expense of themselves. High self-belief, low self-worth. That was my category. I had high self-belief. I believed I could get things done. I achieved, I did great things, I do great things, but I was constantly doing it at the expense of myself for others. I was always hoping people would come along with me, and if I just did enough for them, they would see the vision. And that, of course, over time was at a detriment to myself, and it suppresses and it builds, and it's this whole thing. But if you feel like you're dragging people all the time at the expense of yourself, that's a hero complex. The guide has high self-belief and high self-worth. The guide knows that there's actually no arrival in those two categories or in anything. You can always keep growing and going. But they're going to light the way. They're going to leave the door open for others to follow and even show them how to go through it, but they are not going to pull people through it at the expense of themselves. And that's where we all want to get to. That's the goal, because the guides are proper leaders. Leadership is such an important thing to study. It's such a hot topic in all areas of entrepreneurship, business, all sorts of things. And that's for a reason. Leadership matters. But a proper leader who leads from the front but doesn't expend themselves for the sake of the mission is a guide, is a proper leader. We've all seen people who think they're leaders, but they have a hero complex. We've seen people who think they're leaders, but they're a villain. They're leading from the back, trying to push people forward to get things done for them. Real leaders lead from the front. And we've also seen leaders who are in leadership positions that are victims. Oh, woe is me. My people aren't doing this. They're not doing this. That's not proper leadership. And so there's so many things you can break down in through the lens of this hero, villain, victim, and guide. But basically, if you are in a victim state, you need to build your self-belief and self-worth. If you're in a villain state, you need to build accurate self-worth through humility and action and build your value in the world rather than just think you already have it. Now, we're all intrinsically worthy as humans, obviously, but as far as like economic value and value that you can add to the world, that has to be built and grown and displayed. And then the hero, you need to build your self-worth. You have self-belief, you're achieving great things and know you can, but you have to build your self-worth along the way so that people are not dragging you down. And then the guide. The guide is where we all want to go. A good level of self-belief, a good level of self-worth that is growing and you're leading.
Well, thank you for sharing that. It's interesting. I didn't know about that before. I heard of archetypes, but I thought it had something to do with something else.
There's lots of use for the word archetype. It really is. But the archetype is basically something that is the embodiment of something. So there's animal archetypes. There's all sorts of things. My animal archetype might be the eagle. And what does that represent? What does that mean? So the word archetype can be used in these different things. But as far as the hero, villain, victim, guide, archetypes, that's the embodiment of what you're living based on this word and based on these frameworks.
Cool stuff. I also wanted to touch upon something you mentioned before. I had a question about what you said. You mentioned like the importance of that women should work with a cyclical nature. How does that really impact their levels of productivity and goal setting?
Oh, especially for productivity and goal setting. Great question. Thank you so much. I could talk about this forever. Even now that I'm in personal development and success coaching and things, all my female clients hear about their cycles because it matters. It matters so much. And for example, let's look at it from a success and business or even work life or anything like that. During your cycle, you are, like I said, mentally, physically, and emotionally different from week to week to week. So for the first week of your cycle, that's called inner spring. That is right when your period ends. That is your inner spring. Think about what spring feels like. Spring is coming back to life. It is creative. It is colorful. When you are in your inner spring, you are in a creative phase. So if you have to do anything for work that is creative, this is a great time to do it. And again, I'm really simplifying it here, but if this piques interest in you, if you're listening, I highly recommend diving deeper into this for yourself. And then you go into, so that was your follicular phase, your inner spring. Then you go into ovulation. That's your inner summer. Picture the energy of summer. It's exciting. It's hot. It's barbecues and social things. You're active. That's the same how you feel internally. You are more articulate. You are more willing to be social. Any woman listening is going to resonate with this. How often have you 1 week made plans with your friends? Oh my gosh, girls, I want to go out. I want to go out dancing. I want to be social. Let's go out. Let's go out next Friday. Next Friday comes and you are a different person than the person who made plans a week ago. That person was ovulating. They were in their inner summer. They wanted to go out. They wanted to dance. They wanted to see people, maybe flirt with some boys or whatever that looked like. Now you're in your luteal phase. Now you're in your inner fall. No, you want to hibernate. You want to be in a place where you're actually not as social. And so women will go through this thing where they're like, oh my gosh, last week I was on track with my habits. I crushed my meetings. I crushed my workouts. I was able to stay with my diet. It was amazing. This week I'm a potato. I don't want to do anything. I'm tired. I can't seem to stay consistent with my diet, my fitness, my habits. Like, what is wrong with me? Why do I suck so bad? Why can't I be like I was last week? There's so much shame and guilt in these phases for women because they just don't understand that you are not set up for success this week like you were last week. So the more you can leverage the times that you have energy and things for energetic things, that's amazing. Do that. And then understand that during different seasons, like your luteal phase, your inner fall, you're actually more designed for organization. So we get really organized during this time. So if you're in a career where you need to do organization, spreadsheets, back office work and stuff, inner fall is a great time to do that. But you're also really in tune with your environment. This is when you feel more inclined to organize your environment. This is also when things frustrate you more. And that is not because you're a terrible person. It's because you are mentally wired to be frustrated by things in your external environment. You are hormonally set up to see all of your frustrations. It is normal. And then you go into inner winter. That is your period. And that is think of winter, you want to hibernate. You want to be cozy. You want to be still. You're very internalized. And this is a time of just being. And so as women, we still need to function in a 24-hour clock world. And so typically women who don't have control over their hours as much still have to show up to a job day to day, let's say. You can still understand your energy that you bring to that day without guilt and shame that it wasn't the same as last week. You can bring yourself an extra snack. You can go for an extra walk maybe on your 10-minute break or your lunch because you know your body needs it. You're just honoring yourself in the season you're in whatever way you have control over. But the biggest control is how you feel about yourself mentally, knowing that some weeks you are going to feel like you are absolutely crushing it and others you're going to feel like you're not. So me on this podcast, for example, Daniel, when I'm podcasting in my inner summer, I crush. I am way more articulate. My memory, I can pull frameworks and things from my memory way easier. During my late inner fall, and especially when I'm in my inner winter, I think I suck. I think I suck on these shows. I'll have to ask people to repeat the questions sometimes. I won't be able to pull certain words from my vocabulary. But because I understand that I am not set up for success physically, mentally, emotionally, as much as I was a couple weeks ago, I just give myself grace. I crushed last week. This week, I did the best with what I had. And that makes all the difference with how we feel and treat ourselves. And for women, that's such, like I said, just this empowering superpower.
So, what piece of advice can get to people, especially women that feel stuck or overwhelmed in life? They don't know what to do. They feel confused.
Oh, it's based on the lens. I would need something more specific. Like in general, if you're just generally stuck, overwhelmed, and confused, then you need to sit down and get clarity. You need to sit down and really think, what do I want? For women, actually, one of my favorite things to do, I give them a frustration audit. Oh, it's the best. I want you with full permission to take a piece of paper and write down everything that frustrates you. And they'll say, no, this thing's too little. That shouldn't matter. I shouldn't be frustrated about that. Nope, it goes on the piece of paper. Full permission. It goes on the piece of paper. Do your frustration audit. Now, our brains are very powerful things, and what we focus on, we really focus on. So if I'm getting someone to do a frustration audit, I make sure they have a gratitude practice to balance it out. Because we don't want them to be in this frustration audit and all of a sudden become a more frustrated person because they're given permission to shout out loud all the things that frustrate them. So we want to balance that out with a gratitude practice and appreciation so that our brain isn't getting super wired for just frustration. But it is so valuable to sit down and really label out all the things that frustrate you and do it over a couple of days. You'll walk around and be like, there it is. Husband leaves wet sponge on the counter every day. Frustration on it. Okay, amazing. And then I want you to categorize them into things that you have control over, you have influence over, and you do not have control over. You will be surprised at how many things fall under the I don't have control over this. So if you don't have control over it, then you need to learn to control yourself within it. How can you emotionally, mentally do better within that situation? If you have influence over it, so influence we have over our environments, over our family, over our children, over our spouse. We don't have full control over them. All parents and spouses know this. We don't have full control over our spouses and our children, but we do have influence. And so what falls under the influence one? The husband wet sponge thing, that falls under influence. How can I influence my husband to not do that every day because it's driving me bonkers? And then the things you have control over, those are the things you start with. The things you have control over, those are the things you start with. You need to let go of the things that you don't have control over, and you need to start working on yourself within them, and you need to start really doubling down on the things that you do have control over that alleviate these frustrations for you. And then you're going to have more capacity. Capacity is really important. You're going to have more capacity because you have less frustration weighing you down to do and see and have capacity for the things that you want to achieve and the things that you do want. And so that would be a really simplistic place to start. But if you're just overwhelmed and in general overall lost, you need to get some clarity. You need to get some clarity on what your life needs and you want it to look like. Because once you have that, then you can start, like we said at the beginning, you have the goal, now you have the map. Once you have the goal of this is actually what I want my life to look like, I actually really want a more affectionate marriage. Okay, amazing. Now everything you say, think, do, feel, believe is either for that or not for that. Do more things that are for it. Start there. And if you need support, find someone who is ahead of you in this arena. See if they'll mentor you. Find a coach who thrives in the arena that you're looking for. Maybe they're a fitness coach and you are looking for fitness. Women, find a fitness coach who also understands your hormonal cycle, because then they'll give you real fitness advice for you and your body. Amazing. Find people who can support you. Find communities of people who are on the same journey that you are on for more support and for validation when you are struggling. So there's a few little things if you're just overall in general overwhelmed.
Your family made a move, like they moved across Canada
Yeah.
to create a value-aligned life. How did that decision teach you about fear and trust?
Oh, it taught us so much that people think they're stuck. People think they're stuck because so many people are like, you can't do that. You can't just pick up and move across the country. What about Chris's job? What about your house? What about your life? You can. You can do these things. That's what it taught us. Now, can you just pick up and do it without any planning and saving and things? No, you shouldn't do that. You shouldn't just quit your job on a whim. And if you have people who depend on you and a certain lifestyle and things, but with time, with planning, with intention, you can absolutely do these things. That's what it taught me. And it taught me that you can make a big change that even though it feels scary, it can be the best thing that you have ever done for your family. As a family, we're thriving more out here. Professionally, I'm thriving out here. It has been a wild move, but it did teach me that people fear change and that they think they're stuck because we got a lot of projected opinions onto us when we decided to make the move.
What happens when people like who plan, like actually start to achieve their goals? What's the next step? Like you said, if somebody wants to be the not in a relationship, that goes to be in a relationship, then what? What do they set new goals or just keep working on the same ones?
Yeah, there's always a next level to the goal, right? So let's say you initially want to start moving your body every day. You want to work out every day. There's still a bigger goal of, I want to lose 50 pounds, let's say. But to lose 50 pounds, you need to build an identity of someone who's going to physically take care of themselves. And so it has to start small and build. But yeah, let's say your goal is to get married. Okay, amazing. There's the wedding day. we did it. Now, how can the goal be? How can I have a great marriage? What do I need to do to be a great partner? Who do I need to become? What more do I need to learn? There's always more. Again, that comes down to humility. Humility is knowing that what you know is limited and what you don't know is limitless. You can always learn more about yourself to become a better partner, and you can always learn more about your significant other to become a better partner. The goal of having children. I want to have children. Great. You had the children. Now have the goal of being a great parent. That never ends. There's always something more you can do to become a better, more aware, more loving, more supportive, more belief building parent. So there's always more you can do to compound on what you have built. And it's up to you to decide what that looks like. Because there's lots of paths you can take for sure. Which one feels the most aligned and exciting for you at the time? The only wrong answer is to stop. You don't be the best partner you can be until the wedding day and then turn into a lazy, I'm not going to put effort into my wife person, or vice versa. That's the only wrong answer there, is to stop growing.
So talking about next level, like you mentioned before, you offer like coaching through next level. Why should anybody, especially women, need a coach? How does it help them? Because a lot of people think they have to figure things out themselves. How can a coach really help somebody take their life to the next level?
Good verbiage. Love that. So what is great about a coach is the same as what's great about a great book. It condenses time for you. If you're doing it on your own versus going and reading about you read a book that someone wrote, that's decades of their life on average. It's typically their experience combined with all the research they had to do to get you that information. And you read the book in 3 hours. You have all of that information that took them decades to learn in 3 hours of your time reading, or 5 hours, however big the book is. It's that. But the beauty about a coach is not only does it help you condense the time of your goals, hopefully, if they're a good coach, but they also give you real time perspective. A lot of people have misaligned time perspective for their goals because we live in a day, like you said earlier, where there's a lot of distractions and hype and social media saying, oh, you can make $1 million in a weekend. Just do these 10 things. That's just so you click on it and think they're special. There's so much of that. And so we should be able to give you accurate time perspective, but also accountability is really important for people. Now, I don't think you necessarily need to pay someone to have accountability. You can have accountability buddies, accountability groups, but to be accountable to someone and be monetarily invested in that accountability really helps. It does. It means that it shows yourself that you are worth that investment, but it's also someone who is holding that part of you accountable to the things that they're trying to help you achieve. There are so many reasons to have a good coach. A good coach, there was a study done that said a good coach can increase your chances of success over 700%. So that's like you giving me $1 and me giving you 700 and something dollars back over time. Over time, not right away. Keyword there is time, eventually. That's a huge thing. That's a huge thing. But you need to be discerning as a human, as a consumer, to make sure that you are getting a good coach. Someone who is going to help you build the identity and the hard skills along the way. Someone who is going to help you stay on track. Someone who's going to share hard truths with you, but also validate you when you need it and support you when you need it. It's very individual to the journey because there's so many different coaches and mentors out there. So make sure it is someone who has the results, actually has the results, doesn't just rent a car and post them on Instagram, actually has the results of the kind of life that you want to live and the values that you believe in. So I deeply believe in mentorship and coaching, but I also deeply believe in being discerning in who you allow to speak into your life.
So, Amy, I really appreciate everything you've been sharing. If somebody had some questions about a conversation today or they're interested in hiring you as a coach, what's the best way they can reach out to you?
Oh, I am a very simplistic being that way. I'm just on Instagram and Facebook. You can DM me anytime. It's just at Amy Lenius. And what's really lovely about that is you get me on the other side. You're not getting an assistant. You're not getting an AI. You get me on the other side of those DMs, and you are more than welcome to come and pick my brain anytime. I love having conversations about everything that we discussed today. You let me hit all my favorite topics today. Thank you so much. And if any of this piqued any interest or struck some curiosity in you, I'm happy to answer any more further questions that are more individualistic to you behind the scenes. Just message me.
Awesome. So if you want listeners that listen to this podcast today, take away one message from our conversation, what do you hope will inspire them to choose themselves more fully?
Yeah, to learn to build your self belief and self worth and to have self awareness. And ladies, that for you does mean your hormone cycles. It does mean your physical state. For all of you, it's your physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual wellness. It's it's how you show up with others. It's how you navigate yourself, others in the world. Self awareness is everything. And the more you know about you, the more you're going to be able to navigate your version of success, your goals, and things better. That would be it.
And I'm assuming that as a coach, that's something you help people with, build their self-esteem, their
Yes.
self-belief, and all that great stuff. And
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Have to. A good coach helps you with what you want because typically you go for you go to a coach for what you want. A great coach also helps you find what you need. They help you get what you want, but can discern what it is that you need. The thing that is not in alignment with the goal that you have, right? You're not as successful as you want to be because you believe everything already. No, there's things that you don't know and don't believe yet, or things that you haven't understood yet that are holding you back from that. And yeah, it's a great coach helps you with both what you want and you need. And so lots of people are looking for external results, but they need the identity and the internal work along the way. And so, yeah, you got to be able to do both.
oh, that sounds absolutely wonderful. Amy, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I always learn so much from listening to you, and I really appreciate you coming on here and sharing all this your wealth, wisdom, knowledge, and experiences with the audience, and being so brave to talk about your personal life, including some of the struggles that you dealt with in the past. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing all that with everybody. I got a lot out of this conversation. I'm sure a lot of other people too. So thank you for doing all of this.
Oh, of
Much
course.
gratitude.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me and for another round of great questions. The A guest is only as good as the questions they get to answer. So thank you so much.
Absolutely.